selling paper out. What I want to talk about today, and I kind of alluded a little bit to it earlier, was my experience in New York City real estate. But it wasn't as much New York City real estate as it was our experience with 3 or 4 different real estate agents and the experience that we had with them. And I thought, wow, this is great. Here's some great do's and some great don'ts. So I kind of wanted to walk you through this. But to get a little bit of a picture, our experience, our daughter is moving into, she's got a job basically in Manhattan, and she needs to be in a certain area. And my wife had predetermined that she wanted her to be on this street, this far away, in this basic neighborhood, and that's it. And it had to be a building with a doorman, and it had to be this and that, this and that, okay? And she was very specific with the real estate agents, and she talked to all of them on the web, all right? So those of you, first of all, that aren't on Net Aspects, which is a website and lead management, etc., or something like Net Aspects, for very little money per month, I think are missing a giant opportunity. Because first of all, we'd never be talking to anyone because we went through listings after listings after listings looking in a certain area. And those listings are cross-referenced, which you could get the cross-reference. It happens all the time with the IDX. You're missing an opportunity. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and create websites. I'm not telling you to become the SEO king or queen of the business. But for between $55 and $65 a month, you can have a website, you can have a follow-up system, and you should have it. And if you have it and you're not using it now, then you need to spend some time on it. But remember, that's at 10 o'clock at night till 1 o'clock in the morning. It's not during prospecting time, right? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, I know nobody heard me, but I just wanted to try and get my point across. So that's everybody's just going to run out tomorrow and get new websites. I know this, all right? Don't. Okay? So we set appointments with 3 or 4 different brokers. Now, there's less than a 1% vacancy factor in New York City. Less than 1%. So we were told, we were counseled by the agents. In the beginning, we didn't want to listen to them because, of course, who knows better? My wife's an attorney and I'm a real estate broker. Okay? I know better. Well, they really stuck with us and said, look, we've got to counsel you on what's going on. You've got to know what's going on. This is how if you want a deal, forget about a deal in price. That ain't happening. But if you want to get a decent property in decent condition, in a decent neighborhood, in a decent building, then you better follow our advice. And here's what's interesting. The people, the agents who kept making their case as nicely but as firmly as they could not have been more right and more helpful, and the people at the end of the day that we ended up doing business with. Okay? Because the other people just didn't have it. They just didn't have it. So let's go from this perspective. Okay? So here's some of the do's that we ran into, and then I'll give you some examples as we're going through it. First of all, you've got to listen to your client. You've got to listen to your client. They need to tell you, but more importantly, you need to ask questions to get clarity. The single most important thing you can do to make a successful sale is listen to the client, understanding their wants and their needs. Now remember what I told you. We're looking for this small corridor, which was within 1 mile of the property, right on the subway line. That's what my wife was focusing in on. Now, what did we end up getting? It wasn't even close. Well, no, we didn't end up in Long Island. But we ended up about the same distance. My wife wanted to be on 14th Street, and we ended up on 23rd Street. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but in Manhattan, I'm telling you, every block is like a new city. Okay? It's amazing what's going on there. Amazing. One broker, the one thing he did was he stuck with us and kept asking questions. What is it you really want? What is it you really want? What are you looking for? And he set us up. Just write this down, ladies and gentlemen. He knew his inventory. He knew his inventory. He knew his inventory. He knew his inventory. That's why when he talked to us and asked us questions, he can say, yeah, you can stay here, and I'll show you some properties there. And by the way, the first two properties I went in and looked at, I was almost in tears. I couldn't imagine leaving my daughter in New York City, in these buildings, in these locations. The building was pre-war, but I'm not sure which war they were talking about. I'm not even sure it didn't go through the war. They were horrible. 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 Well, they start at 400 square feet. The question was how big. They started, we wanted preferably a one-bedroom. They started at 400 square feet and went all the way up to 650 square feet. And don't even ask about the price. I'm not telling. But
what's the price?
The agent, so we see some property, and one of the agents was an agent, but she really wanted to be more of an actress than an agent. But she showed us the property, and then she stands back, and she's a clerk. She's not showing, she's not asking, she's just being a clerk. She did get us into the building. She did get us up the elevator, which was questionable. Not her, the elevator. But I want you to know the experience with these two different people was like night and day. Like night and day. Remember I said earlier, you need to counsel your people because they're going to have to do it anyway? Well, they counseled us, and they said, you have to have your financials. You have to bring your financials with you. Well, what do you mean? Everything. All your, whatever your accounts are, all your stock bonds, everything, all your financials, have them ready, have them emailable and copies. Because the buildings go so fast. It's not the price. It's who's qualified. Because the laws, the tenancy laws in New York City are draconian. It's very, 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 very hard to get a tenant out. So they don't let a tenant go in unless they're platinum. So you have to have your financials. Well, so I was thinking about this. How many times do we show property with clients that aren't really financially qualified? Or let's assume they're financially qualified. Let's assume that you've done your homework. But you haven't gotten all the paperwork together. Have you guys ever been in a transaction where you're still waiting for a bank statement or you're still waiting for a tax return? Has that ever happened? Let me tell you something. That guy would not go out with me until I showed him my tax return and my bank statements. He wouldn't go.
But you told us not to do that.
At some point, I think you can show a property. Remember, we've been talking to this guy for weeks. Okay? We've been creating a relationship. He's been asking lots and lots and lots of what? Questions. I think if you get a call from somebody, boom, and they say, I'm calling on 123 Main Street, this is what you're referring to, then I think you need to connect with them. It's okay to go out and show them one property and start to build a rapport. but I wouldn't show them more than 1 or 2 properties in a close area without starting to build rapport and get the financials. But I'm telling you, we're writing offers, we're getting acceptances, and then we're going in and trying to build a package for the buyers, and the thing falls apart on us, mainly because it takes time to what? Get it together. Start educating your clients from the very minute you're talking to them about what they're going to need to make a smooth transaction. A smooth transaction. I didn't really like it, but the guy was a pro. So listen to your client. I wrote down here, number 2, build a relationship and demonstrate your expertise. Buyers and sellers usually don't want to become experts. I didn't want to become an expert in the area. Your buyers and sellers don't necessarily want to become an expert. They just want to know you're an expert on the area and on the financing. Do you get that?
Yeah.
And yet, some of you show property without previewing it first. How do you do that? How is that possible? That you could actually go show a piece of property without having previewed it first. It's impossible. It doesn't make sense to me. And yet, you do it all the time. And then, you come and complain to us that you can't make a sale. Duh. There's a correlation there. I wrote down here, next thought of a do. Always ask for business from everyone you meet. Everyone you meet. This guy did not stop closing on us for the next client. On the phone, who do we know in New York? What's going on? Who do we know? Who can I help? What can I do? Always asking for business. How many times do you ask to replace the client you're working with? How many times do you ask for new business? I wrote down here, study the competition. Study the competition. Know what your competitors know and know some more. He knew what buildings were available, what weren't, and what was required in one building and not required in another building. He knew what was going on. And there's a lot of competition in Manhattan real estate. A lot. As much competition in Manhattan real estate as there is in our general market here.